So my name is Denise Johnson, and I'm one of the academic advisors over in dual enrollment. Some of you I've already met. Some of you have met with Michelle Quadras. Some of you haven't stepped foot on this campus before. So welcome to it. Hope you like our library. It's really big. I love this building, and there's lots and lots of time that you can come out here and study if you need to, if you can get away from your own campus. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how to make you a successful college student, transferring from being just a high school student, because college life is going to be different. It just is. Some of what we'll go over will be technical things. Hi, welcome. I think there's some seats in the back. Was there 2 seats over here? So we're going to talk about some technical things like how you'll sign on to various course programs, sign into your email, etc. I'm also going to give you some tips on how to talk to your professors, email your professors, etc. Students who are here, you should have gotten a folder. It's going to look different than mine, but you should have a folder. And we're going to go through those papers, but I'm not going to read them to you. You're all able to read, or you wouldn't have got that passing score to be able to be in dual enrollment. So I'm going to task you with actually going through the folder when you get home. But what I am going to do is go through it and point out some highlights. There are going to be some very specific points I want to make note of out loud to you for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure you don't miss that component because I really want you to be sure you understand it. The other reason is if you come to me in a semester or two and you're like, oh, Ms. Johnson, I didn't know. I'm going to be like, yes, you did. I told you. So we're going to make sure that you've heard the information, okay? But you're still responsible for everything else in there. Parents, I'm glad that you have come as well. I do need your attention on the first 2 papers for sure. After that, you can tune me out if you want to, but I do encourage you to listen because sometimes a second set of ears is just helpful. On the left-hand side of your folder, there's a paper that looks like a letter. It starts, Dear Parent and Student. This was written by my supervisor, Ms. Quadras, and what it does is it lets you know that we have, for lack of a better term, a chain system of how we're going to handle issues. So if something's going on, say with your professor, you've got a grade you didn't think you should get, or anything going on, your first step is contact the professor, okay? Now, I'm here to advocate for you, and I want to help you be successful. If you've reached out to the professor and nothing has gotten resolved, nothing has happened, etc., then I definitely want you to come see me and let's see what we can talk about and how I can maybe help you with that problem. But sometimes it's something very simple. So always reach out to the professor first. We're going to get into email etiquette a little later on. But for example, it's the truth that professors are human and they make typos just like everybody else. So you got a 94 on your exam, but they're keying it in. What's right under the 9? On the keypad is a 6. Oops, they've accidentally given you a 64. So before you run to me in a panic, let the teacher know, okay? And we'll talk about how to word that later so you're not coming across rude and aggressive. But if nothing gets resolved, then that's where you come to me and say, I've reached out to the professor, how can you help me, okay? But remember that chain does apply. And we'll always ask you first, what did the professor say? Okay? Underneath that paper is something called the Authorization to Disclose Information. Parents, this is super duper crazy important for you to hear. There is a federal law called FERPA, which is Federal Education Right to Privacy Act. What that means is that your college student, even though they are underage, is now federally protected in privacy, okay? If you call me up and you ask me, hey, how's my student doing in class? If I don't have that form on file, I can't talk to you about that. If you ask me if they passed anything last semester, I can't talk to you. You can ask me how many maths they still need. I can't talk to you without that form. It's not personal. It's that I don't want to get fired. It's a federal law. Think of it this way. It's like HIPAA, how your doctor can't share your medical information without your permission. So, you don't have to make a decision today, but if you think that you're going to be calling me or coming to see me, then go ahead and get that form signed and have it on file. And then when you call up, you can say, oh, Ms. Johnson, I signed that form. I confirm it in the computer, see that that form is signed, and we're golden. And now we can talk, okay? But if you haven't signed it yet and you call me, I'll remind you that I can't talk to you. Please remember, it is not personal. It's a law, it's a rule. It's not even a Florida Gateway thing. That's a federal law. So if you decide today maybe you think you don't need it, but then a semester or two goes by and now you're like, oh, we need that. That's fine. You can fill it out then, okay? But that's a really, really, really important paper because at least once a semester, I get an angry parent. And I get it. Your child is 15, 16, and the high school will give you information all day long. We've got a little bit different rules to follow. So that's what that form is. Again, if you're not sure, you can wait until you know for sure. So behind that paper on the left side is another form with a big old title called the AA Degree Checklist. That's a mouthful. Nobody likes to say that every time we have to refer to that form. So for short, you will hear most of us advisors around this campus just call it the track sheet. It's where we keep track, okay? And the form can look intimidating at first. You're like, what are all these codes? But if you can crack the system, it's really simple. Everything that's on the left side is your general education classes for a 2-year AA degree. But you'll see within that, you've got a lot of choices that you can make. All right? The reason we do that is because we want to help you pick the right classes. That's why you have choices. So somebody going into engineering versus somebody who's going into journalism, they're going to have very different maths and very different sciences. So we want to give you the right math, the right science. On the right-hand side of the paper is an electives column. This is where we get even more detailed. So if you were going to be an accountant, now we're going to take your electives and fill them up with all those kinds of classes, accounting and business and things like that. There's a big, big thought process that electives are the fun, fluffy classes, which, hey, they can be. But let's always forward think about what you want to do later on academically. And we can go over that in detail if you come see me, if you know what you want to do, even if you don't know exactly what you want to do. If you have a general idea, make an appointment to come see me and we'll go through that. And we'll talk about things that you can take that would be best suited towards your interim goal. You don't have to make that decision right away because, I mean, everybody's got to have a little history, everybody's got to have English. Some things are very basic, but when we start getting into more details, feel free to reach out to me and let me help you with that. Behind that form is another form, and it's an educational plan. Some of you are going to love that form. Others of you are never going to look at it again, okay? That form is a good way to do what I call thinking out loud on paper, all right? So when you're thinking about the classes that you have to take, some of you are going to wing it semester by semester. You're going to be like, Ms. Johnson, what do I still need? And we're going to figure it out. Other of you are going to go home and before the next week is out, you're going to have your whole next 2 years planned out because you're just that organized. I'm not that person, but I know those people. My sister is that people. So these forms are really great for anyone who wants to do that. If you want to use that form, try to use it really well by thinking to yourself, okay, in the fall, I have band. I know that maybe I'll be traveling a lot. I probably shouldn't take a science with lab. Make that little note up there, band. That way, it's a mental reminder to you to not take that heavy of a course just because you're not going to have time. Okay? Again, other of you will never look at that form again. But if you want to bring it with you when you come see me, we can try to plan it out a little bit. It's always subject to change. It's just a general guideline. But that's how the left side works. So over on the right side, that first paper is called Succeeding in the College Environment. Now this is where the next couple of papers is going to have information put together for you from the ladies of my department. All of us have been here for quite a while. I'm not even sure. Collectively, we probably have well over 20 years together, but we've got like 10 years. I think somebody's been here. I think Michelle's been here 7 or 8, and Pam is about on the same par. So we've been here a while. We've seen a lot of student questions, things that students don't know, things students wish they had known. And so all of us kind of got together and put together some tips and ideas for you. What will happen when you go home and read these is you might say, I read that on the other paper. Yeah, you probably did. Because that means that more than one of us thought it was really important you know that. Okay? That doesn't mean that if you read it just once it's not important. It's just that some of these we just really want to make sure you understand. Okay? So we talked at the beginning about being on time. You really want to make sure you do that. In an in-seat class, don't come in late. It disrupts the entire class. There are no bells here. This is college. We don't have a bell system. You're supposed to know what time it is, and you're supposed to be there. A good rule of thumb is on time equals late. Okay? I'm not telling you to be there an hour early, but try to be there a few minutes early, get in your seat, get your books out, and all of that. If you forgot a pen, now you have time to borrow one before class starts. Teachers have the discretion, although I don't think any are currently doing it, but when I was a student out here, one of my professors did it. As soon as class started, she closed and locked the door. Now you could still come in, but you had to knock. And then you had to apologize to the class for being late. And it was this whole embarrassing scene. Let me tell you, after about week 2, nobody was late again. It was really something. But, you know, most teachers won't do that to you, but I just want you to understand that they do have a right to lock that door and say, you were tardy. So don't be tardy. They can take points off for you being late. Don't do that. Find out what your teacher's attendance policy is. Online students, absenteeism is still a thing for you, okay? You're not physically sitting in the class, but you've got to log in. You've got to sign into Canvas, and we'll talk about Canvas a little later. But that's your online course room. You've got to sign into it on day 1 of the semester starting. Not only are you going to sign in, you're going to do some work. And we're going to get to that again in a little while in more detail. So keep in mind, you have to attend classes, and if you're in seat, be on time. This second point is going to sound really silly, but know your instructor's name. You wouldn't believe how many people don't. They'll come to me and they're like, oh, Ms. Johnson, my English teacher this. I'm like, oh, who's your teacher? I don't know. Can you look it up for me? I can, but why am I? So know your teacher's name. That's super important. Learn their office hours. That'll be on their syllabus. If you have problems or questions, learn how to get in touch with them. College professors do want you to succeed. They're not out to do bad things to give you bad grades. Go to class prepared. Again, sounds very basic, but it's a thing. Handouts, keep them. If your teacher gives you a paper, or if your teacher says this paper is online, know where those things are, because they may refer you back to them later. Okay? So you always don't toss them out. Keep them, just in case you need them. The syllabus. In case anybody doesn't know what a syllabus is, for lack of a better short explanation, it's kind of like a contract between you and your professor. Everything that's written in there is going to be vital. It's going to talk about their expectations for the class. How many assignments are due, what those assignments are worth, the assignment due dates, All that kind of information is going to be in there. Their late policy on work. Will they accept it late? Some teachers have a very strict, nope, if it's late, don't turn it in. It's late, I'm not taking it. Other professors are going to be like, you have a day or two to turn it in late, but you're going to take a 10% penalty per day. That's still better than a 0, right? So know what your teacher's policy is. That's really important. The teacher's also going to tell you what they expect from you. If you have an in-seat class and they have an attendance policy, you need to know that. And some teachers do. After like your 3rd or 4th absence, they can start taking points off of your grade. And what happens is that you've earned this grade, but at the end of the semester, you had 7 absences from that 16-week period, and now they've taken 10 points off your score. That's a big deal. So you need to know their policy. That way, if something's going on, you can reach out to them, okay? You can say, oh, I know I missed class today. I was very, very ill, etc. So you'll just really want to know. And when you come to me about something and you say, I just got a 0, I didn't even know we had this assignment, I'm going to be like, oh gosh, well, it wasn't in the syllabus? Or you're going to be like, I don't know, I haven't read it. I got to see the syllabus. Now, if it's not in the syllabus, man, we got a case, and I'm going to bat for you, okay? But that syllabus is a serious piece of paper, so I definitely want you to make sure you have access to that. Extra credit, not really a thing at college. Every blue moon, you'll have a teacher who will offer it. Here's my advice to you. Take it. Even if you've got an A in the class, get those bonus points, because here what happens. Current you has an A, doesn't need those bonus points. 3 weeks from now, you've got a roaring headache, you could barely get out of bed, but you've got an exam. So you drag out here anyway to take that test, and you didn't do as well as you know you could have otherwise. You've got cushion now because you did those bonus points, okay? So think of future you. Even if current you doesn't need that extra credit, future you might. So let's make that happen. This is talking again about the makeup exams. Don't fall behind in your classes, and I can't stress that enough in a math class. That becomes a big old snowball effect. If you guys have ever seen like the cartoon snowballs, they start and that really can happen in a math class. So if you start getting behind in math, you don't understand the concept, ask your teacher for help before you're drowning. We have free tutors on this campus. Go to them. Let them help you. Maybe you have a classmate who's really good at it. Find someone before you're in serious trouble, because it will get out of hand really fast. So try not to let that happen. One of the things I want to talk about when it's talk about not getting behind and knowing what's expected of you, something I do hear frequently is, I didn't do well on the test because they didn't go over that in class. I get that. It helps me if somebody's gone over something. I do understand that, but was the material in that chapter that they had assigned? If they assigned you chapter 8 and they only went over a few points from chapter 8, that whole chapter is still fair game on your test, okay? So keep that in mind, that just because they didn't go over it in class doesn't mean you're not responsible for it. You still need to be aware of that, because that is one place where I see a lot of students stumble. They think if it wasn't talked about in class that it won't matter, but it very well might. Again, at the bottom, it talks about reaching out for help if you start stumbling. So the next paper is the survival tips. And this is a front and a back page. I want you to skip down to the second smiley face. I did smiley faces rather than bullet points. I thought they were a little more friendly. But when we're talking about the syllabus, these are things I want you to do on day 1. If you have an online class, it's going to be super important that you do these steps right here on day 1. Obviously, log in. Read that syllabus. And the reason I want you to read it straight away is so you know what you're getting into. Now, an English class is going to be an English class, but When you start picking other classes, sometimes the description of the course or the title of the course might not give you an idea of what you're really getting into. Or it is something that sounds great, but you realize you're not going to be able to pull it off. For instance, one of our child education classes, you have to go spend time in a classroom, an actual classroom, during the semester. It's not a whole lot of hours, but if you're 15 and you're not driving and you're at high school all day, you're not going to be able to pull that off. But if you didn't read the syllabus and you don't know that that's part of it, you're going to end up coming to me in week 6, withdrawal dates passed, and now you're stuck. You've got to make it happen or fail the class. So read your syllabus, know what you're getting into, because then you can come to me and you can go, oh my gosh, Ms. Johnson, there's no way I can do this. I'll be like, let's get with your counselor and get you something else, okay? So day 1, read that syllabus. I also, if you're in an online class, I want you to learn what your professor's discussion board requirements are. For anyone who hasn't done a discussion board, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's within that electronic classroom, and you talk about the subjects. Your teacher will have a subject or a question, and you'll have to discuss it there because you're not in class. Find out how many words they're looking for, because some teachers have a word minimum. Some teachers are strictly looking for content, but you need to know. You also need to know how many students you have to reply to in your classroom and what kind of replies that a teacher looking for. I can tell you right now, they're not looking for great post, good job, I agree. That's not going to fly. You always want to make sure that your replies have some kind of content to them. You know, like if the topic was which color M&M is the best flavor, right? Which they're all the same. But say that you chose red, but somebody else chose green. When you go in there, you say, I noticed you said green. The textbook mentioned green does this, right? You're showing that you understand the material and that you read what your peer wrote. All right, that's how you're going to get your best good grades. So that's going to be important. On day 1, there will also be an introduction area. Introduce yourself and, you know, say hi, say who you are, what your academic goals are. Some teachers will give you specific questions to answer, but most of them just kind of wing it, you know, tell us who you are, what you expect from this course. If you're not sure what to do, see what your peers have done. Now, that being said, does not mean copy them. Do not ever, ever, ever copy them. But you can see, oh, they were talking about their dog and their favorite sport. I can talk about my dog. I have a dog I love to talk about, right? So now you have an idea, but never, ever, ever copy them, okay? There's a big difference between getting your brain sparked and copying, because copying will get you in a lot of trouble. It's called plagiarism. That's not on our agenda right now, but while we're there, plagiarism is a hot topic, because obviously if you copy someone else's work exactly, you know that's wrong. That's clearly plagiarism. That can get you a 0 for the assignment. It could get you an F for the course. Depending on how bad it is, it could get you put out of dual enrollment, okay? And if you get put out for plagiarism, that stays on your college record. Don't let that happen, okay? But here's where it gets tricky. You can plagiarize yourself, okay? What I mean by that is, let's go back to the M&M thing, right? So we learned about this in nutrition, about which M&M has the best flavor and what nutrients it was. Now you're in science class and we're talking about nutrients and M&Ms come up again. And you're like, oh, I already wrote a paper about this. It's a total score. I don't have to do any work. I'm just turning that in again. Nope, you're plagiarizing, even though it's your work, okay? So make sure that you don't copy yourself either. And that's where it comes a hot topic. So just always remember, when in doubt, make sure that it's some other kind of verbiage. When you're using from the textbook, reword things. Don't copy from the textbook, unless you're in a class where you're learning how to cite your sources and all of that. But then you're citing it, so you're not plagiarizing. That's a whole different animal. So let's talk about corresponding with your professors. When you email them, there is email etiquette that I want you to make sure you follow. And if you do that, it'll make my job easier if I have to help you. And it'll make your academic life a little easier too. Remember how I said know your professor's name? Use that name too. There are students who will start the email, hey, don't do that. Just don't do that, okay? Because you might have a friendly hey, but it might come across aggressively hey. Plus, it's really, really casual and informal. And you want to have a certain amount of professionalism going on, okay? So don't start with hey. But if you absolutely cannot resist the hey, at least say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, all right? At least use their name in there, but try to avoid the word hey. Let's go back to that grade example earlier. You had gotten a grade that's supposed to be a 94. Their finger slipped, they gave you a 64. Don't jump on them automatically. Don't come across and just be like, I didn't get this and you need to fix it. Whoa, hey, can we talk about this a little bit? Calm down. What you want to do, and I'm telling you, you don't have to use my exact verbiage. You'll find your own self, because you still need to be yourself. But just take a deep breath before you panic and say something rude to your professor. And say, I noticed the gradebook had a 64. The test you handed back had 94. How can we fix this? Right? You're bringing it to their attention without being nasty and accusatory. Again, they're human. It happens. Or they just, skipped a line, they typoed. There's a number of things that could go on. It's usually fixed that quick, okay? Also, if you put it in a nice way, say that you don't get an answer from the professor, and then you come to me and you're like, I really need help with this issue. I am going to be able to go to bat so much better for you because you look like this nice, great student, right? Versus the whole rar, rar, rar email. I mean, we're still going to go to bat for you, but you're making my job a little harder. So the more you can help me, the more I can help you. Plus, you want to stay on good terms with your professors. You just don't, no need to rock a boat that doesn't need to be rocked. Now, if you're getting into some serious issues, then we've got a whole nother discussion. But most things you're going to email them about can easily be taken care of. The other reason you want to see how you're wording things, I'll give you a personal example. I adjunct, and what that means is that adjunct professors are people who teach the overflow classes. There was too many for just the full-time professors, so other people with the credentials are picking it up. And I had a student a couple semesters ago who emailed me. She did the hey thing, and it said, hey, why did I get a 94 instead of 100? And her name. That's all it said. Now, when I read it, I heard a tone in there. Hey, why did I get a 94 and not 100, right? That's how I read it. And I replied back to her. I was like, you need to come see me. I'll be in the library, blah, blah. She comes in there and she's like, hey, why didn't I get 100? I was like, oh, that's how you wrote that. Okay. So remember, tone is easily lost in an email. So you want to kind of reread it a couple times and just, nobody's going to write a perfect email. We all read things and write things differently. But just kind of step back and ask yourself, is this a good idea? So the dates of the college are not always going to match the dates of your high school. And that's really important for you to know the difference. If you're on spring break at high school, but we're not on spring break here, you are responsible for your college courses, okay? You don't get a free ride just because you're off in the other place. And that has happened before. It was a crying student, very upset, and I understood her pain, but there was nothing I could do for her. The professor wouldn't budge. I'll go to bat for you, but I can't make them do something they don't want to do. She assumed we were on spring break because she was at high school. She went off. Now, she had a great spring break. I mean, she told me she had a lot of fun, but then she came back and there was some zeros that she didn't expect, and we weren't having spring break for another week here at the college. And she had asked her professor, she's like, oh my gosh, I thought we were on spring break, blah, blah, and the teacher's like, nope. And the teacher wouldn't budge. And I asked, I said, you know, can you maybe give her half credit or something? The teacher said no. I can always request, but I make no guarantees. They are allowed to do what they want to. If it's in that syllabus, if they don't take late work, I can't make them take it. I'll ask them, but I can't make them take it. So please keep up with the dates because they may not match. So add drop period. That's something that you need to know exists. Remember I told you on day one, read that syllabus? The first couple days of class are what we call the add drop period. So if it's a class that you realize you can't be in for some reason, we can drop you out of it and it'll never show up on your transcript. It's like it never existed for you. If there's something you need to add, we have that time period to add it. However, once that drop add period is over, if you decide you have to come out of the class, we're now doing what's called a withdrawal. Okay? We can still get you out up until a certain date. There's still a date on the withdrawal process. But up until that date, we can remove you from the class if something's going on. But that one stays on your college transcript as a W. One W isn't the end of the world. It's not going to ruin you academically forever. But you don't want those to be adding up over and over, okay? Because then it starts to look like an issue. And it's looking like you can't finish what you tried to start. But one W, it could happen. I mean, life happens, right? So if you think that you need to withdraw from a class, I would like you to come see me first just to talk to me about it, because maybe it's something that we can help you with. I had a student, he wanted to withdraw from math because he wasn't doing well. Now, he wasn't failing big time, but he just wasn't sure he was going to be able to pass. It was kind of borderline for him. He didn't know we had tutors. So I hooked him up with the tutor center, and he got a high C. And he wasn't even sure he was going to pass at all. It was real iffy. So now he could have withdrawn, but we were able to salvage all the work he'd already done and get him through that. So come see me. Maybe it's something we can work out. If not, we'll work on that withdrawal process. But add, drop, withdrawal, all of that, registration always has to start through your guidance counselor, okay? If you go to a public high school or a private high school or a charter school or anything that is not homeschool, I have to have written paperwork from your guidance counselor to do anything. There's a few reasons for that. It's mostly a big checks and balances system. But if you come to me and you're like, I really need out of this class, I'll be like, all right, but I need the paperwork. Ms. Johnson, I found out I have extra time in my schedule. I want to add this class. Great. Where's the signature, right? So always get me the signature. You bring that to me, we're good to go. But without it, my hands are tied. That's a policy that we have. Now, if you're homeschooled, I have to have it from your folks, okay? So there's still a process. It's just instead of going through a guidance counselor, you'll go through your parents or guardian because they would be considered the person in charge of your high school needs. So it's always going to be some kind of paperwork as a dual enrollment student. You can't register yourself. You bring me the paper, I go and cancel all the locks on your account, and then I register you and I put them back on. Okay, that's a dual enrollment thing. So don't panic if you try to go register yourself and you can't. It's there for a reason. On the back of this paper, we're going to talk about some technical things. So one of them is getting your FGC student ID. Currently, at this exact moment, that's optional, but that is changing. It's going to become mandatory that you have a student ID. What you will need to have in order to get that is you'll go down to Building 7, which is our Student Activity Center, and you'll need a copy of your class schedule for the college, not for the high school, and you will also need a photo ID. The rules say it needs to be some kind of state or federal ID, like a passport or a driver's permit or a driver's license or a state ID. If you don't have any of those, maybe you're 14 and you don't have any of those, come to our office, talk to us, and we'll see what we can do to work with the Student ID Center to get that fixed for you, okay? But just so you know, that's something. Also, right next to that is our college-wide learning lab, which is where our free tutors are. And again, they're there for several subjects, and feel free to use them. When I was a student out here, I did. I won't lie, I used them. And they made a difference. I am not mathy. Me and math do not get along. And thank goodness for those tutors, because I might still be a student out here with you guys if it wasn't for them. So I'm really grateful for the tutors, and the fact that they're free is icing on the cake. One of my son's friends goes to a different college that I won't name, and she has to pay for tutors. So that makes me sad for her. You know, you're paying all that tuition. You guys aren't doing enrollment, which is awesome. So way to go on that. So we have a Facebook page as well. You don't have to like it, but if you do, I promise not to spam your timeline with craziness. I only post important stuff. Now, when I say important, that's also subjective. So during finals week, you know, I might post like a little puppy and just say, hang in there or something. But for the most part, it's going to be like, don't forget registration is this date, withdrawal is that date, things like that. Now, I did break my rule once, and it wasn't college related. It was International Turtle Day. I just couldn't help it. I posted a little picture of turtle. I said, let's celebrate. And my son, he's like 18. He's like, I'm leaving home if you ever do that again. I'm like, I thought it was funny. He's like, it's not, Mom. I'm like, okay. So, but yes, you won't get bombarded with a bunch of stuff you don't need. It will be important stuff. So underneath that is how to log into your My Fgc. Currently, because you're new, there's not going to be a ton of information in there, but as the semesters go, there will be more and more information for you. You can check your transcripts in there, see what classes you took, what grades you got, what semester you took them in. You can print your current schedule from there. Right under My Fgc is a link called, I believe it's called My Detail Schedule, and it will show you what you're registered for, and you can print that schedule right on up. So if you lose a schedule, you can just log in and print another one. There's just so much you can do in there. I really encourage you to go in and kind of poke around and see what you can find. Again, the longer you're here, the more will be in there. But it's a really good place. What I want you to know is that once you are registered for a class, it will show up in your My Fgc for that semester. Canvas, which is our online course room, it is not going to show up there until the semester begins. So right now, those of you who are signed up probably for the SLS 1501, the college experience, when you go home tonight, if you log in to your My Fgc, you're going to find it there for the summer. You're going to see it. It'll be right there. But if you pop over to Canvas, it's not going to be there. Don't panic, okay? Now, some of you are still going to panic, and I'm going to get that email that says, Ms. Johnson, it didn't show up. I know it didn't show up. And I'm going to reply back to you and just remind you gently that it won't show up until the semester starts, okay? The other thing you need to know about Canvas and the semester starting is that the courses are turned on manually by the professors. So every time classes start, when I get to work at 8, I've got at least one, sometimes 2 or 3 emails from somebody who's concerned because the course isn't open yet and it's 2 o'clock in the morning because classes start today. I love your ambition. I do. I applaud it. Way to go. I hope that stays with you, but your teacher was probably asleep. They weren't turning on their class. Now, you might have a night owl professor who turned it on at midnight, but don't count on that. If you're eating your breakfast cereal and the Canvas still isn't showing it, don't panic yet, but keep an eye out for it. Now, if it's lunchtime and that class isn't showing up, then I need you to let me know, or let your guidance counselor know, let somebody know, so that we could get with the teacher and find out what's going on. They may have simply forgot. Again, professors are human. So we'll need to track them down and see what's going on. This recent semester, I had a professor who had 3 back-to-back in-seat classes, so she didn't get her class turned on online because she had been in the classroom all day. So sometimes it's just something like that. But if it's lunchtime and it's not there, do let me know. If you do get in, I'm guilty of this. As an adjunct, I did this once. I did open my class, but I forgot to open any assignments. So the class was there, they could log in to it, but they couldn't see a thing. So I had to, oops, that's the second switch you gotta flip. So just let us know if something is wonky with the class and we'll get it fixed. But as long as you see it in your My FGC, you are in that class, okay? When you log in to My FGC, it'll be your student ID number, which should have been on your welcome letter. And the first time you log in, it'll be your birthday information, and then you'll change it to a different password. Underneath that is how to log into your Canvas, and that'll be through your Wolves account email. You'll use that address, and that was assigned when we did your admissions form. And you can find that address in your My FGC. Usually it's just your first name dot last name at wolves.fgc.edu. So the other thing that you need to know is that with that Canvas, you're using your Wolves email account to sign in, and that is the email account I want you to use to email your professors. Your name's built right into it. They'll know who you are. I wish I were joking when I said that people will email us from random, like their Yahoo or Gmail or something, and never say who they are. Never. Cookie Lover 12, I will never forget that one, was really in a panic because they weren't showing up in their class. Never told me who they were, student ID, nothing. I have no idea whatever became of Cookie Lover 12 because I got that one panicked email and then nothing ever happened. So it's not written on here, but while we're talking about identifying yourself properly, when you call your professor or call me or call anybody, in addition to your name, which is important first and last, okay, leave the phone number. More than half of my voicemails say, hey, Miss Johnson, this is Kaylee. Call me back at this number. What number? I got 30 phone calls today. I have no idea how to find out what number is yours. This number doesn't help me. And Kaylee who, right? Because I've got 13 of them in dual enrollment, so I don't know which one called me. So help us out so we can help you out by giving us your first and last name and a callback number. All right? That's really, it sounds simple, but it's really, really common to forget that. Now, for those of you who don't like to pick up the phone, and I know that teenagers are tired of hearing it, they just don't like to pick up the phone. Young people these days won't call anybody. Yeah, I don't like the phone either. So if you don't want to call me, don't call me. You are welcome to email me. You are always welcome to email me. The other reason is because if I've got students in my office, I can't pick up the phone. That would be rude to them. If I'm across campus like I am now, I can't pick up the phone. But your email will be there waiting for me when I get back to my office. So always feel free to email me. If it's something that we can't work out in email, then obviously you can reach out by phone because sometimes things are too lengthy to get into. But if it's something simple, feel free to shoot me an email because I'm with you. You know, phone calls take time. All the pleasantries that go with them. Hi, how are you? Are you busy? How are the kids? Oh, that's great. Then you ask them to bring bread home for dinner. You're like, we're out of bread. Can you bring it? Yes. Okay, great. Drive safe. Have a good night. You know what? Those are wonderful things to say to people, but it just took me 12 minutes to ask for a loaf of bread. I got stuff I got to do, right? So email me. Email me. We'll get right to the point, and I won't give you a hassle for not calling because I get it. I totally get it. So always use your Wolves email account, and when you call, leave a number. The next paper under that is a challenge from me to you that is not specifically academic in nature, but I think it will enhance your college experience if you'll read those papers. Now that first thing is not optional. Okay, even if you throw this paper away when you get home, that first thing I really want you to keep in mind. Stay hydrated, rest, eat. there's a constant meme that I see that makes me laugh. And it says it's something about people say that they forgot to eat because they were too busy, and you're like, I never forget to eat. How are those? It can happen. It might not have happened for you yet, but now you're tackling college and high school and life. That's a lot on your plate, so to speak. You might forget to eat. So if you do, let me tell you, I'll be honest with you, it's not to be rude, but if you come to my office and you've got bags in your eyes because you're not sleeping, or you look like you're shallow because you're not drinking, I'm going to ask you. I'll ask you straight up, honey, are you getting enough sleep? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm concerned. Because if we've put so much on your plate that your health is in jeopardy, I need to make sure we don't give you that much next time, okay? I'm not trying to be mean or pick on the bags under your eyes, because there are days I come in with them too. I totally understand. But we want to make sure we're not overwhelming you. Dual enrollment is a great thing when used properly. But I don't want you to go out of your mind at 16 or 17 trying to meet all these expectations. I want you to do well, and I want you to succeed. But I also want you to stay a person and stay who you are. That's important to me, because I want you to get your education for your brain, but I want you to stay a whole human as well. And I can get real corny on you in my office if I think you're not. I'll make you breathe right there in the office. I'll be like, let's do that whole in and out thing. People are like, oh my God, Ms. Johnson, no. I'm like, come on, it's good for you. So take care of yourself, even if you do nothing else on that paper. Parents, if your child is not eating, please make them eat. They're not drinking, remind them. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that you've got to do something outside of the academics. Now, this is where sometimes I get glares from the parents in the audience, but there's empirical evidence. Don't take my word for it, look it up. Distracting yourself 2 to 3 hours a week from your academics will make you a better academic. Get your mind off of it. If you've been looking at that screen to write your essay for an hour and you haven't got anything out because your brain is just mush, get up, leave, walk away. Because you're going to sit there another 2 hours still staring at the same screen. Go read a chapter, take your book out, learn to play the ukulele, do something, and then you can come back to it. I'm still in school, so I'm not so far removed from these issues that I don't understand. I'm working on my PhD, so I know what it's like to have to do all this stuff in the daytime. You guys are in high school in the daytime, I'm at work in the daytime. Then you've got your own academics in the evening. I do too. And I've got kids, fortunately, who are older now. But, you know, there's a lot going on. I understand your life is busy. That's another reason I'm going to harp on you. Because you've got to make sure you take care of yourself, all right? So there's some other things on there about how to make friends. And the introverts always groan. They're like, I don't want to do that. I just want to go to school and hope nobody sees me. But I'll tell you, my introverted people, I don't get it. I'm not. But I know that it's real. My children are so different. My daughter, if she were in this room, would be in that back corner hoping nobody noticed she was even here. My son would walk in here, sit by one of you, and by the time you left, you would be like, I have to know him. He was so friendly. Where do I know him from? Right? Two different people. I raised them both. But if you're an introvert and you don't want to make friends, I'll tell you how to make a friend without making a friend. When you walk in that room, you look for the other person who's making the same face you are as, oh dear God, please nobody notice me. And you go sit by that person, don't look at them, but sit by them and be quiet together. And now, someday, you've missed class because you're sick, and you can sit down and you're like, hi person I haven't actually looked at or talked to because we respect each other's space. I missed class. Can I have your notes? And they'll be like, oh, they have not intruded on my life. Yes, this person understands me. Here's my notes, right? So now you've got this friend, not friend, right? If you're an extrovert, if you're like me, you can go in and make friends anywhere. But I'm encouraging you to make friends outside of your normal circle. When I walk in a room, I look for the nerds. I'm like, who is going to see Infinity War this weekend? That's who I want to talk to, right? But I need to talk to people who do things I don't do. because you'll find out you actually do have things in common you didn't know you had in common. So I'm encouraging you to make more of your college experience than just academics. Try to reach out a little bit and do that, because I want you to get a lot from this, especially if you're going to go off to a 4-year school, because that's a big deal. Here your classes are 20, 25 people. There your classes are going to be 100, 200 people. It's a big, big difference. So get your feet wet here. Learn to be you while you're here. If you have mom call me because you're afraid to call me about those questions, here's what I want you to do. I want you to be near mom. Don't have mom call me while you're at school, because then you'll never learn what to say to me on the phone. Again, feel free to email me. But if there's that phone call involved, be near. Hear what mom says, so that next time you'll be like, oh, that wasn't scary at all. I can make that call this time. All right? So I want you to learn to be independent, and I'm going to encourage you as much as I can. Parents, when you come with your student to my office and Miss Pam says, sign in, she doesn't mean the parents, okay? She wants your student to sign in. But that doesn't always happen. So your kids are in college. Let's try to make that transition, because we really want to help that. And students, here's what I'm going to tell you. Being smart will get you into college. That's what got you here. You passed all those tests, you have the high enough GPA, and that's great. Being smart will get you into college. It will not get you out of college. That is discipline. All right? So that's what I need you to hear from me. My smartest students are the ones who fumble the first semester. They've never had to study before. And now they do, and they don't know how. If you don't know how to study, come see me. I will help you with that. Okay? Don't fall down. Discipline is your key. Brains got you here. They're not getting you out. All right? Come see me. I want you to succeed. Come see Michelle. She wants you to succeed. We want the best for you. Let us help you with that. All right? So I've about talked myself dry. I saw a lot of head nodding, so I'm thinking a lot of people were able to understand kind of what was going on, or at least you're really good at pretending it, so thank you, thank you. I'll go home and tell my puppy I did a great job. But do you guys have any questions that I could answer? Yes?
For online students, is the facilitator also the course writer?
Generally, most of the time.
Sometimes there's differences between what the online professor wants and what the syllabus says and what the course says.
No, whatever the syllabus and the course says is what will be expected. But sometimes teachers, they'll like another teacher's syllabus, so they'll just take that. That's what I meant by they're not necessarily the creator. If they like the way somebody else had a course laid out, they might borrow from that. But whatever is on the syllabus and in the course is what they will hold you to.
Both?
Yes.
Even though if it's in the course and not the syllabus?
So that would be a place where you ask your professor. For instance, I'll give you a for instance. I know a professor recently who realized that she had 2 assignments due on the same day. She didn't mean to when she scheduled it, but then she realized it, and she went in and made an announcement in the course that said, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'm changing this one assignment to 2 days later, so you have a little breathing room. Now that freaked some people out, and they were like, but the syllabus says this. Yes, it did, but you've got this newer, updated comment that says it's okay. But when in doubt, ask. When in doubt, ask. Because the syllabus is definitely your golden key, but sometimes things are subject to change a little bit. If it's in writing, that's where it's accountable. That was a great question. Yes?
The schedule that we received today, if we wanted to add a class to that or change because we thought of some things that we didn't realize prior, does the guidance counselor at the school have to make the change first and we bring it to you, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would go to the guidance counselor and they would either give you the paper to physically bring back to me or they would fax it over.
Okay.
But one of those 2 things has to happen. Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? All right, then I'm going to let you find people go. And remember, you can always contact our office if you have any questions, okay? Have a great summer.
Do we do anything else?
No, you're good for today.
Okay.